And so I'm so happy to welcome our esteemed panelists today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And so what is a mediator? What does a mediator do? So a mediator is a neutral third party that gets involved to help just parties come together to resolve conflict or dispute. That's a mediator. You do have to have training. Let me say this, you don't have to have a law degree, but you do need training because there's strategies and there's things and there's tools to use to help people come to a understanding and to reach an agreement. Mediation, what is that? Mediation is a voluntary negotiation process between two or more disputing parties where an impartial third person, a mediator, comes in and manages the interaction, which prompts the disputing parties to understand one another and to address the underlying needs and interests of each party, such that the parties themselves, the mediator doesn't do it, the mediator is just a tool and use the tools that they have to help the parties themselves devise a feasible and durable solution that works for them. We use mediation all the time in the courtroom. We use mediation outside of the courtroom. And it is really something that I am passionate about. I am here now at the one and only Atonement Dispute Resolution Center in the historic Sunnyside, Texas. And it was so important to me to build a facility like this in our community because I know what mediation can do. And I believe that we should have these types of facilities available to us. Because if you are one of those people, and I have a lot of those people in my family, and I'm just gonna say it, and y'all could get mad at me, but I'm Black every day. We were gonna do this for Black History Month, but you all know that we had a freeze in Texas and we had to kind of deal with some emergency situations. And so we rescheduled this. But if you see, I have on my Black attire, my kente attire, and I'm ready because I'm always Black 365 days of the year, and my panel is too. So I think I can talk about Black folks, right? And Black folks, I'm going to tell you, like to sue people. I'm just going to say that. Because when my family learned that I was a lawyer, it's like they call me all the time. Can I sue them for this? Who we gonna sue? And litigation is an expensive process. Because we talk about suing people, but I don't know if we understand that it's very expensive. It's costly. And so without having to spend a whole lot of money and go through a whole lot of drama, you can still get your concerns addressed by mediation. And it is an alternative to suing someone and going to court and having this long, drawn out battle and litigation. And it is available to us. And I want us to be able to have access to it and to have access to those people who know how to do it and to have access to the resources in our community. So I was proud to be able to put my money where my mouth is because I truly do believe that mediation and alternative dispute resolution should be made available to everyone, not just those who are able to access attorneys, but those who are able to come together and want to solve problems, okay? And so we're going to go straight into our topic for today. So panelists, how do you think the mediation or the alternative dispute resolution process can be used to handle various issues?
Well, I'll jump in and get it started here. But first, let me say thank you so much for inviting me. You know, Qiana Manns, your viewers probably know you as a good resource to our community, but I know you as a good resource to me in court. You are a jewel in court and a valuable asset. And so, of course, if you ask me to participate, I got to say yes. So with that, to the question about does mediation handle different types of situations? And to that, I'm going to give a different type of answer, something that perhaps litigators would be upset. I'm going to say no, maybe, and then yes. So by no, Obviously, it has to involve a situation where there's more than one person involved. And so if Big Mama decided that she wants to give her diamond ring to Susie, Susie's going to get the diamond ring. There's no mediation that's going to be appropriate in that situation. If you're trying to incorporate a business, the mediation is not appropriate. Another situation, if you're trying to do appellate type work, you can't take the judge to mediation to try to get a different type of outcome just because mediation, alternative dispute resolution is available. Now to the maybe, I'm going to say maybe on this end if things are in place. So if both parties are willing to respect the process, one of the things that is of benefit, extreme benefit to mediation is that it's a confidential process. So if one of the parties wants to have a public airing of their grievances, if they want public vindication, they want everybody to know every detail and to set an example, mediation is not going to be the tool to use because, again, it's a confidential process. You can't even use the things that you learn at mediation in court if mediation fails. It's confidential. So both parties have to be willing to focus on trying to have a resolution as opposed to trying to have public vindication. Let's see, another situation might be if safety were an issue. If the parties are not able to be in a room together, especially if there's domestic violence, the Texas Family Code actually permits individuals to opt out. They cannot be required to even sit in a mediation process. It's understandable. Safety comes first. And so now to the yes part, and then I will tag in somebody else. Just about everything else can be mediated.
Thank you. And I also want to make a note that I do have a certification in inter-partner violence, where we are able to, if you are trained, you are able to mediate situations where there is high conflict, where there has been some type of domestic issue, where there has been some dispute, so to speak, where there's a hierarchy or power struggle between individuals that are now trying to negotiate. And that does take training to understand and know the parties that you're dealing with. And how to best resolve those types of issues. And so there is so much out there about mediation, about how you can do it, about different training classes that you can take. Like I have our brother, Minister Willie, on here, who offers training classes for those individuals who are interested in conflict resolution. And so there is the ability for you, if you are interested in this type of process, and to be available for people who are looking to resolve their matters through mediation, to come to a mediator and a trained mediator to resolve your issues. But I'll open up the question again to the other panelists.
Can you repeat that question, Ms. Manns? I'm sorry.
How can the alternative dispute resolution services or mediation be used in various issues to resolve various issues?
Well, I'll say that, you know, as Ms. Manns mentioned earlier, litigation is expensive, right? You can pay on the average an attorney anywhere from maybe on the low end $200 to as high as $500 to $600 per hour. So mediation is a wonderful tool if you're trying to cut your cost of litigation in order to help you to resolve those issues. I always tell people that what I value about mediation is that I would rather be a partner in designing whatever you're there for, designing the outcome of my case versus allowing a judge who doesn't know me, may see me for a couple of hours and make a decision that affects my life and possibly my children's lives. And so I would rather have a hand in that process. It may not be 100% of what you want, but it gives you an opportunity to have some say in your own affairs.
Wow, I'm sitting here and I'm learning from every response. And even what our sister said about what she said about domestic violence. You know, people have been reaching out to us to do domestic violence, but something in me just didn't feel comfortable with it. And I was like, nah. And what she said, it just confirmed just a unexpressed feeling that I had. So I'm learning, and even what our sister Nicole said about in regards to the cost of it, from my perspective, it is definitely significant. It's definitely needed, especially in our community, you know, because we have come across people who are ready to respond in a violent way over some of the things that when you really look at it, it's like very trivial, you know? And I think in regards to our community needs it, and we need to see more examples of it and more stories of people who have come together using mediation as a way to resolve issues that they were faced with. So it's definitely significant and definitely important.
And I wanted to have this talk or this topic presented in this webinar series because I do feel that as attorneys, we use it all the time. Most courts require you to mediate, with the exception if there has been a protective order of domestic violence. But other than that, most courts do require you to mediate before you can even come to a trial or, you know, come present your matter before them on some occasion, even if it's not a trial setting. And so it is rarely talked about because I think it is a confidential process that we don't think once we mediate and we resolve the issue, there's really nothing else to talk about. And if we do mediate and don't resolve the issues, we still can't talk about it because it is a confidential process. Your mediator has a duty and has taken an oath pretty much to not divulge or develop, you know, present your information to anyone else. They cannot be called by anyone and ask what happened, who said what occurred during that session. And also the parties are under those same restrictions. So I think the actual advantages of going through that process and being a part of that process is kind of lost as well, because we don't talk about it at all. So the confidentiality of the nature of the process has made it a process that's kind of hidden, I think, in the legal community, because we don't necessarily talk about it because of that restriction, but it is available to talk about, not necessarily to talk about the substantive things that we dealt with during the mediation, but the actual process, we definitely need to do, I think, a better advertisement, a better marketing of the entire process, because I can say by what you all are saying and delivering as what you think, you know, the type of issues that mediation can handle and all of that. The main thing, and I believe Attorney Stagg mentioned this, is to be able to have a hand in resolving your conflict. And what I see as a mediator is one of the major benefits that people walk away empowered by the use of the mediation process. And by understanding like this was available to me to use as a part of the legal process, but it's also available outside the courtroom. And so wanted to talk about that as well. Do you have to have a filing of something to be able to avail yourself to a mediator and to the mediation process? Is there any way that mediation can be used outside of a litigation or a legal matter?
I was trying to let.
I'm
Okay,
sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Fortson.
No. I went first last time, so I was trying to let somebody else go first this time.
Well, I saw Brother Willie unmute his.
In regards to ours, you know, the mediations that we deal with, not dealing with legal issues, is really resolving conflict, street conflict between, I'm not going to even say street conflict between two individuals, because one of the things we've come to learn when we started, we began the work of mediation here to address street conflict. But as more people in the city began to start finding out what we were doing, I realized even more how, you know, the street conflict, that's the low hanging fruit. We see that on the news, but we've done mediations between business people. We did a mediation between an attorney and a businessman. So it shows you that there's just a greater need, because we're always going to have conflict. And the key thing is learning the skills to be able to address them. Like, we could get together for a family outing, and unfortunately, I don't know if it was in Indianapolis where there was a I think it was a homicide, and the news reports are saying it was over the stimulus check.
Right. And so, about the work that you're doing, why did you all feel that mediation was necessary outside of the courtroom when there wasn't any filings or anyone hiring an attorney to go out? Why did you all feel that alternative dispute resolution would be helpful in that regard?
Two simple responses. One, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wanted that to be one of the action items for the commemoration of the historic Million Man March. And then the other thing is just to do our part in reducing seeing another mother on television crying over the loss of a loved one.
And I'll answer with that, kind of going back to what Attorney Stagg said. You get to have a say in the process. There's not, if you can handle something outside or in-house within the family, if you will, instead of going and publicly putting it on display for everyone in court, that's always a better resolution. What Brother Willie, it seemed like what he was talking about too, reminded me of restorative justice. And there's a type of restorative mediation that's similar to that. And I know restorative justice right now seems to be a really hot topic on TV shows. I've seen on Law and Order, on All Rise, all of that. But again, those are type of things that can happen outside of court, because it gets to what happened, who was impacted, and what do we need to do so that we don't get here again, and how can we heal? Those are things that are not going to happen in the courtroom. You're not going to get that type of, you're not going to be heard. You're not going to be able to connect and move forward like you can in a mediation. And all of that happens outside of the courthouse.
And I was going to say, and I guess to echo kind of what Ms. Fortson said, I had never thought about mediation in the perspective that Brother Willie mentioned in doing it, you know, just from people from the street in their everyday lives. But what I do know about human beings is that we all have a desire to be heard, right? We want to be able to voice our opinion and just have somebody listen. And the benefit of a mediator is that you get a neutral person that is trained to let you be heard. They're there to listen and then hear the other side's argument, and then help to kind of put you down a middle road where you can reach a resolution, hopefully in a peaceful manner, and then feel that, like I said, you had some part in the dispute that was at hand in the first place.
You know, family, I was going to ask the question, and actually Brother Willie touched on it, with respect to mediation. Is it, for the most part, limited to disputes, let's say family law disputes or domestic disputes? And actually he sort of, you know, put it there that when he said that he was able to mediate a session between an attorney and a business owner. And so my question, even follow up on that, is mediation something that can be used in practically any disputes or any disputes in any walks of life? Or is it just for the benefit of our listeners? Or is it, for the most part, dealing with, you know, if we have some disagreement, let's say a domestic disagreement or something like that? In other words, can we use it, let's say, in the employment setting? Can it be used in a contract dispute or those other things? Just for the benefit of our listeners, what say the panel?
Something Sister Alicia started off, she started off, and one of the points she made was true. In order to do the mediation, you got to have both parties that want to mediate, right? Because some people just don't want to do it, and you can't force them. And it's interesting when you Google online about mediation, the vast majority of the material that you come across is talking about handling workplace conflicts, right? And what, as Sister Miss Nicole has said about people wanting to be heard, it's amazing how many people have conflicts and they never say, let's talk to one another. They're like talking about somebody through a third person, but they never sit down. And in a common place, you normally see it. And we bring this into training with these hip hop artists. Instead of like picking up the phone and talking directly to the person, they use Instagram, Twitter, or talk show. And it's like, just have a conversation and you can get all of this I thought, she thought, he said, and all of that stuff out of the way.
And so mediation is an opportunity and a process that can really deal with various types of issues. So it's not just family law, although those are the majority of the cases I mediate. I've also, like Brother Minister Willie, I have mediated with partners in the partnership. I have mediated with businesses and an individual who has been mishandled or felt that they were mistreated. And outside mediations of things that have not gone to litigation through organizations where there were disagreements or conflicts. And there are people who do this primarily for a living every day, and they mediate various types of issues, mediation with school board and parents who have issues with their child's education, who believe that they're not receiving the services that they are entitled to receive from the school. So just various things that can be handled through the mediation process. And one of the reasons that we are talking about it today is to make sure that people are aware of that there are a lot of issues that can be handled through this process, which enables people to come together to talk to one another in a safe and appropriate way. And also, I wanted to just present, as far as mediation concerned, I was making a joke about Black people liking to sue people. And that's just really based off my family, so you could put it on me. But my experience is that Black people are mishandled and mistreated a lot in our society, which gives them a reason and an opportunity to go forward to express that I don't feel that this was right for me. And this opportunity is available in mediation. If you have interaction with the cleaners or a business in your community, you don't necessarily have to immediately go to sue them. You can request that you all attend a mediation and that your grievance, so to speak, or your mishandling or your misrepresentation is handled in that regard. And there are so many other things with your home association. There's so many other ways that you can, of course, present that, and the other party or the other person has to be willing to submit to the process as well. But it is available for us to address some of those grievances, because a lot of the things that we are feeling that we have been mishandled or misrepresented are really actionable items, and they are true. And we really do have a right to present those grievances and to be heard. We have a right to be heard. And this is a process that enables you to be heard. And so I don't want you to leave away not thinking that, this is available to you as well, to address any of those things, like I said, through school, through employment, and various scenarios with, interaction between gangs. We do have that in our community. We have neighbors who have disputes with neighbors. and who may not have the ability to go file something because it's not an actionable legal issue, but it's an issue that's disrupting the community, the neighborhood, you know, where I can't walk on your lawn and you can't, I mean, it's things that can be put in place where persons who are involved in that type of dispute can be heard and can have a hand in resolving those things, so we can live in a peaceful way and feel that we have been honored, that we have been dealt with, and that we have been heard. And so I'm glad that that was also presented. How can people contact mediators or get to know who's mediating in their community or avail themselves to this service?
Well, in Harris County, you know, we've got, as Ms. Fortson said, that she regularly volunteers with the Domestic Resolution Center. I do the same thing. I try to volunteer there at least once or twice a month. And that's, they allow you to do the mediations there free if you're within a certain income guideline. The same thing is with the Harris County Domestic Relations Office. They will mediate for you for free if you fall within a certain income guideline. But you can certainly Google attorneys, Google mediators. On the average, you can find a mediator that may cost anywhere from $300 per side to maybe as high as $600 per side. But they're very easy to find if you're wanting to have someone help you resolve your conflict. And I assume, Ms. Manns, your organization that you work for is out there and willing to help you as well.
Yes, and so we have the Atonement and Dispute Resolution Center available with mediators who we work with throughout the city, and you can select your mediator, which is totally different than going to court because you have no choice. If your case land up in the court, that's pretty much the judge that you're going to get to hear your dispute or to listen to whatever issues that's brought before the court. But with mediation, it's a little different. You have a right to say, I want Qiana Manns to be the mediator. I want Ms. Stagg to be the mediator. I want Alicia Fortson to be the mediator. You have a right, you and the other party, of course, can agree on who can mediate. And I want to say that it does make a difference. It does make a difference feeling comfortable about the person that you are speaking with and the person that you are presenting your issues to. There are free services available for you based on your income level and your status and what it is that you can pay for mediation. So it is an opportunity to have access to legal help and representation, even if you cannot afford an attorney. And so you can take advantage of those service providers. At the Dispute Resolution Center here in Sunnyside, we will match you up with a mediator of your choice based on the list of mediators that we work with. And you can come to the center. We have been actually also allowing virtual mediations now during the pandemic, which have been very successful, I would say, in resolving some conflict during this whole pandemic, because I mean, we have enough to worry about. Wouldn't you all agree? We have enough to worry about, and to get some things settled and resolved, it's definitely a stress reliever. And it's definitely something that I have seen helps in our mental well-being to be able to resolve and close out matters that we're dealing with, because everything that we are involved in is really personal to us. And even if it's something trivial that, somebody else believes that, I mean, that's petty or that doesn't mean anything, to that person, that's important. And so to have the ability to resolve those matters in a way and in an environment where you feel that you're heard and that you're listened to is a great thing for us to be able to take advantage of. And I also wanted to say this in terms of the financial benefits of it, because like I believe Attorney Stagg said, you're talking about an attorney, you'll have to pay $200 to $500 per hour. And I know those of other hues make way more than that. I think we kind of lowball ourselves, Black attorneys, and I'm just going to say that. People have been getting on me for years, like, you should be charging $400 an hour, and you should, based on your experience and what you do and all of that, and really upset with me because I've had the experience and expertise of many of those who have not, that are charging that amount for our people to retain their services. And I'm talking about right out of law school, $400 to $450 an hour. And so, you know, by the grace of God, I've had the opportunity to do this for 16 years, and I'm still 250, and it hurts me to say that, you know. And so I get spanked all the time by our elders in terms of, you know, you have value, you have experience, you have expertise that you bring to a client and you bring to a matter that you should be paid for and compensated. But I wanted to say with that, there is an alternative, because you're talking about 200 to 500, mostly, I think, on the higher end for a mediator per side than per hour. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference when you look at the cost benefit of availing yourself to the mediation process.